this meeting started. This is the City of Indian Rocks Beach City Commission meeting. This is Tuesday, January 13th, 2026. I'm calling this meeting to order. Please stand to the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please stand for a few moments of silence. Thank you. Lauren, would you do the roll call, please?
Commissioner Jude Bond.
I am here.
Commissioner John Bigelow.
Present.
Commissioner Hillary King.
Here.
Vice Mayor Commissioner Janet Wilson.
Present.
Mayor Commissioner Denise Hausberg.
Here. We're going to start this evening with the presentations, the report of the Pinellas County Sheriff's Department. Hi, good evening.
Good evening, everyone. How are you? I don't think you've ever seen me before. I'm Corporal Denhard. It's my first day here in Indian Rocks. So,
Welcome.
Last minute, I was told I had to come up here and do this, so I think I'm prepared. Let's see what we got here. I'm just going to go over the stats. If you guys have any questions about certain arrests or anything like that, just let me know and I'll go into detail on those. Oh, that's not working. All right, so what we have is, as far as the crime stats in Indian Rocks for December of 25, the most three notable incidents for that was one robbery, there was 41 assaults and 50 larceny reports in the city of Indian Rocks. The year to date for 2025 shows 111 crimes, which was an increase from the 65 from 2024. The arrests for December was a total of 13 charges. It was 8 people, but 13 charges. 3 felonies and 7 misdemeanors. The felony charges were a possession of a controlled substance, which range from anything from possession of a pill that was prescribed to them to anything up to cocaine or heroin or something like that. The other one was a firearm charge. They were in possession of a firearm while committing a felony. And the other ones were misdemeanor, domestic battery, and disorderly conduct. Deputies in Indian Rocks conducted 736 different calls with 920 units responding to those calls. The most frequent call out of those were direct patrols, which were from foot patrols, beat patrols, traffic details, anything like that, and that was 343 of those, with 137 of those being traffic stops. Let's see what else we have here. A lot of our other ones were just citizen calls, citizen calling and asking a question, making contact with somebody on the streets, 911 calls, and then also ordinance violations. Out of the 137 traffic stops that we did conduct, we issued anywhere from 137 to 138 citations or warnings. And then we had 3 crashes in Dunedin, in Indian Rocks during the month of December.
Okay, thank you.
So that's all I have. Any questions?
Does anybody have any questions?
Nope. Awesome.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next will be the report of the Pinellas Suncoast Fire and Rescue District.
Welcome to the beach. CSO. Yeah, not my first time. Might have been a while since you've seen me. Chief Grimes extends his condolences that he's in Tallahassee this week for the special district meeting for the legislative session. So I'll get you a quick rundown. I know this is a busy meeting. So this past month of December, on December 5th, on a good note, we really enjoyed doing the annual Christmas tree lighting. That was amazing. Thank you for including us on that. The fireboat was staffed as well for the Indian Rocks Beach Boat Parade. I'm glad that continued on. That's always fun. So continued progress is being made on the fire rescue station in northern Indian Rocks Beach. It's been allocated a number by Pinellas County, Station 7-5. and Indian Rocks Beach at 24th Avenue, 2nd Street. Last month, several incidents that occurred during the month of December clearly highlighted the operational and public safety needs of the northern portion of the Pinellas Suncoast District. We continue to work closely and collaboratively with Pinellas County EMS Authority and the staff. During the month of December, we had 21 medical emergencies total. So 2 of those were medical emergencies treated as an active heart attack. So these 3 incidents that I'm going to name tonight all occurred where the new station's proposed location is going to be at. We are currently waiting follow-up from the receiving facilities regarding each patient's condition after discharge. In addition to the heart attacks, one incident involved what we call a cardiac arrest, in which the patient was not breathing and required immediate life-saving intervention. So once again, our crews very much know the one element that we can control is how do we get out of the station for the response. With that, beyond that, there's so many variables such as heavy traffic, road closures, distance, or simultaneous incidents are outside of our control. The crews at Station 27, which covers Indian Rocks Beach currently from 3rd Avenue, average turnout time is 48 seconds, which significantly exceeds the county minimum standard of 1 minute and 30. So with the turnout times being very well to the northern end of the district, from the time the call was received to the time they were on scene was 9 minutes and 10 seconds for one heart attack, where our goal is 4.5 minutes. So the second one was just distance alone was 6 minutes and 30 seconds. However, the transport unit was 13 minutes until they got on scene. So we were treating the patient until we could transport. With that, we had 12 fire incidents. These ranged from occupants trapped in an elevator in need of rescue to fire alarms to active gas leaks. The gas leak on December 12th took approximately 3 hours to mitigate, and this was done with the coordination of Clearwater Gas and the Pinellas Suncoast Resources. So you guys have a busy agenda, so if you have any questions, you can wheel it to me, or I can pass it on to Chief Grimes, or you can contact him directly. Any questions?
Does anyone have any questions? So I guess if I have a heart attack, you should tell me I need to go chew up some aspirin, right? Because it's going to be a
They'll tell you
military.
on the dispatch. They're
Yeah,
telling you.
okay.
So, no, we're taking care of everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Next, we're going to move on to the neighbors' comments. This is a 3-minute time limit per speaker. Any member of the audience may come forward, give their name and address, and state any comment or concern that they may have regarding any matter over which the City Commission has control. This is excluding agenda items. All statements made to the City Commission shall be made to the City Commission as a whole, not directed to any individual City Commission member, and no personal, impertinent, or slanderous remarks shall be permitted. No speaker shall be interrupted, and no debate shall occur between the speaker and the City Commission. Are you ready, John?
Yes, I am. Happy 2026. I'm going to talk about the last City Commission meeting. There, numerous residents spoke passionately about the ongoing failure to enforce. How about now? At the last commission meeting, numerous residents spoke passionately about the ongoing failure to enforce the short-term rental regulations, now nearly 3 years after their passage. With an estimated 1,300 STRs in Indian Rocks Beach, roughly 75%, about 1,000 properties, continue to operate illegally. Residents call for a clear, concrete plan and a timeline to address this widespread non-compliance. Particularly troubling was a comment at approximately 15 minutes into the meeting when a member of the commission stated, "We can't force everybody to the table. It's not our job to do so." With due respect, there is no voluntary table here. This involves approximately 1,000 businesses operating in violation of city law. More importantly, ensuring enforcement of city ordinances is a core responsibility of the City Commission. As outlined in the city's charter and on the city's official website, the Commission sets policy through ordinances and appoints a city manager who serves as chief executive officer and is responsible for the day-to-day operations, including enforcing city laws. The Commission provides direction to the city manager and holds ultimate oversight to ensure laws are upheld. Whether enforcement is slow-walked or incomplete, as it has been in the last 2.5 years, it is the Commission's duty to intervene, set priorities, allocate resources, and demand accountability. I'm confident our new city manager is up to the task. That single commissioner comment from last meeting unfortunately explains why so many illegal operations have persisted for years. Residents deserve to hear from all the commissioners clearly and publicly that they recognize and accept the responsibility. We need firm leadership. We need a defined enforcement strategy and reasonable timelines to restore compliance and protect our neighborhood. Thank you for your attention and for a future robust effort to uphold the rule of law in Indian Rock Beach.
Thank you, Beth. Hi, Beth.
Hi, Beth Lynn, 914 Harbor House Drive. As president of the Friends of Indian Rock Beach Library, I would like to invite all the City Commission, Mayor, and participants here to attend our grand opening of the City of Indian Rock Beach Library on Saturday, January 24th from 10 to 2. At 11 a.m. will be our first Florida Explorer story time. This is being funded by the grant we received from the McDonald's Foundation. That will be held in Cold Park. Our ribbon cutting will be at approximately 12:15 p.m. We are accepting book donations that can be dropped off at the library. We use those for our book sale area and to fill the little libraries. Please follow us on the Friends of Indian Rock Beach Library Facebook page. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth. Hi, Kelly.
Hi, I'm Kelly Watt, and I wanted to announce that I am running for Indian Rock Beach Commission. My husband and I have lived in Indian Rock Beach for 23 years. From the area, I'm a local. I went to Clearwater High School, graduated from there, graduated from the University of Florida with a degree in business administration. I also have a master's in business as well, and I love this city. I love this town. It's a great place to live, and I would be honored to represent the residents of Indian Rock Beach and to be able to work with the commission. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good evening, Amy McPherson, 2200 Gold Boulevard. I have some comments and some questions regarding code enforcement. I have made several calls regarding some of the construction sites around the city, and the comments back that I typically receive are that they're waiting for permits or they're in the process of getting permits. And while I understand that that's a lengthy process and that's a process outside of your control, that's with the county, I do think it's time to look at our code in terms of requirements of construction sites. When you look at many of the sites around the city, they do not have proper or adequate fencing. They're easy to access and to get into. I understand that some of those sites have had significant delays from the storms. I understand and I recognize that, but we are, as people have mentioned, we're a city that is full of tourists, people that are not residents, like most of the people sitting in this room. We have a duty to keep everybody safe. When you have people that are coming into town, visiting our city, A, it's a blight, and it looks horrible. We have a site 2 doors down from us that's been under construction with nothing happening for more than 3 years. Rodents, overgrowth, the construction fence is falling down on a regular basis, and it's in a highly trafficked area. So I just wanted to kind of understand how code enforcement works, what the city's intention is with respect to ongoing construction sites and safety, and if there is a thought of this commission, especially now that we do have a new city manager, to kind of look into that and see if it's time to update and put some additional rules into our code. We do, although we don't issue the building permits, the county does, the city does have the right under their code of ordinances to make sure that sites are adequately served, adequate safety, they're maintained. So even though, permits are ongoing, that doesn't mean that you just let the site go. Just like the rest of us, it's kind of, the irony of this is, we actually received a code citation at our building for our hedges being too high. We have landscapers every week. Our building looks beautiful, and yet adjacent to us, where I've called probably 10 times, nothing has been done, no improvements have made, and to the best of my knowledge, they've never been cited, not once. And so I just think it's important to kind of look into that and to understand what we can do to make sure that not just aesthetics, but also safety.
Dean, are you aware of the property she's talking about?
Well, Mayor, what I was going to suggest, Amy, we'll get your contact information and I'll follow up and Code will follow up directly with you.
Okay, thank you.
Who else has a comment this evening?
Good evening. Mark Bodine, 2402 Gulf Boulevard, Cameron Cove Resort. Cameron Cove Resort is a timeshare resort established in Indian Rocks Beach in 1982. All of our residents are weekly owners, and they are given a deed recorded at Pinellas County Courthouse, and they pay their taxes to Pinellas County and Indian Rocks Beach. My question to the commission is, we were never granted or never approved any resident parking for our residents. And I know that the parking issue is a big deal right now, but I would ask the commission to take into consideration Cameron Cove Resort as being weekly owners instead of wholly owners, some kind of parking consideration for the beach access parking for our owners. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hey, Don.
Hey, Don House, 2104 Beach Trail. I didn't know we could make campaign speeches, so I'm making one. It's me. Okay, runners, how many times? This is time. Thanks.
Thanks, Don. Who else has a comment?
Hi, Patty Katz, 124 13th Avenue, Indian Rocks Beach. There's been a lot of activity on social media this week, and I just kind of wanted to go over just the facts so that people remember how things happen to make this community so diverse, not diverse, in causing each other problems. They're just different viewpoints. So, but it's gotten really ugly. But the facts are, community came up with a set of regulations approved by the community and by the commission. STR owners sued the city. Guess they have a right to do that. After hurricanes, when we all had so much to deal with, a meeting was scheduled to change the regulations so that we could just drop the lawsuits. There were only a few regulations. The regulations are not hard to abide by. So after that, one was the number of residents, the number of people that occupants in SDRs and inspections and all of that. Then one of our city leaders, in cooperation with one of the SDR owners suing the city, decided to have a meeting that was announced right before the day of the meeting to the residents of the community. We found out about it and we showed up. It was also scheduled during the day when a lot of people would have to take off of work to go to this meeting. And it was to vote on dropping the lawsuits and to get rid of the regulations that we all put into place. At that point, the whole community just divided. I've never seen such division in a community. And what it came down to were business owners versus people that lived here. Now, recently, apparently, some of these STR owners are claiming their STRs as the residents. The residents, they get a vote. But this all happened behind our backs. And yet, on social media, this group of STR owners feels free to call residents in our community troublemakers. We're not troublemakers. We just agree to certain rules, and we, as a community, do not think that it's hard to abide by. Why do businesses come into our community and feel like, okay, you have to change? You know, it's not fair to us. And I even had one that's running tell me it's a good time for me to move. Well, maybe it's not a good time to move, because maybe we need to stand up. You have to say your name.
Jorge Lucino, 124 13th Avenue, I for my title.
Like I said, during the meetings that followed, things were very heated. So for the record, the community didn't cause this conflict behind the scenes. I, for one, supported the regulations in place, not in hate of SDRs, because unless and until the law says otherwise, SDRs are a part of our community. Loads of nasty things being said, telling me and others that we've been causing trouble for years. One talked about me having plastic surgery. I didn't address this at the time, but I will now. The silver lining in having a bilateral mastectomy due to cancer is breast augmentation. So you can see where people are going in this, the hate that's being spewed to residents in this community. The division is like I've never seen, and what's wrong with regulations on businesses. That's it.
Thank you. Who else would like to speak?
I'm Michael Campbell, 80 Gulf Boulevard. I'll be back to talk about the parking regulation, but right now I'd like to just point out that of the 6 comments that you've had, 3 of them have been about the city's inability and unwillingness to enforce the law. Now you're going to enact some complicated parking regulations. That's going to be another example of the city not enforcing the law. So just put a pin in the fact that the complaints here have been that you don't enforce the law before you enact new laws.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak this evening?
Jerry Newton, 438 Harbor Drive North. If I'm not mistaken, the citizens' comments are about issues that are not on the agenda.
Correct.
And we're allowed to talk about short-term rental tonight because it's not on the agenda? Are you kidding me? With the issues at hand and the lack of enforcement and everything else we're living with in this neighborhood, and it's not on the agenda? Give me a break.
Anyone else? Hey, Lan.
Hi, how are you doing, Denise?
Good.
Lan Vaughn, 301 Harbor Drive in Indian Rocks Beach, Florida. I had the opportunity of seeing a news article, and I just wanted to bring it to y'all's attention, make sure that you're aware of it. Fort Myers Beach is enforcing the law. Why aren't we dealing with inspections for fire? If an SDR, they were talking about it in the article. If an SDR is still waiting on registration, they had 15 days. After that, bookings must be canceled. No exceptions, no excuses. After 2 years, it's clear that Indian Rocks Beach can learn from this approach, and we need to. Any other business running without a required safety inspection would be shut down immediately. I had a conversation with our fire marshal. I said, if I were to open up a restaurant, not have it inspected, what would you do? He goes, I'd shut you down. 2 years, still whatever they want. Just saw another news article about a child in Miami who perished and drowned. And I couldn't help myself but ask, was this house inspected? Was there a fence around the pool? Did they have locks? Is it a safe environment for not only our citizens, but our tourists? So the question is simple. Where is our enforcement today? I'd really like to understand. Rules only matter if they're enforced, and we have not done that. And the residents deserve this, and so do we.
Thank you. Does anyone else have a comment? No comment? I'm closing the public comment. I'm gonna move. Yes?
So, my name is Ninette Privos. I've been a resident here since 1993. I live just over the Walsingham Bridge. Can everyone hear me? So I pulled some data here from the 2024 storms. I was boots on the ground. I'm also a nonprofit. I'm suicide prevention, drug overdose, and emergency management with Water Rescue Now. We've had, just in 2024, on Indian Rocks Beach, 3 drownings. Indian Shores has 1 drowning. Reddington Beach, 1 drowning. Madeira Beach, 1 drowning. Treasure Island, 1 drowning. St. Pete, 2 drownings. So the rapid response of getting out to the beach for any type of rescue, to go over to get to a hospital if you need some serious resuscitation, it's a long way, especially if you have tourists in town. I'm looking at the paid, parking. What we're looking at as a nonprofit, I work with a lot with FEMA. I'm now at Emergency Management Water Rescue Training Center, and I used Indian Rocks Beach because it was the only beach where I could bring my volunteers to come and train for this mission for water rescues. We're able to rescue people on paddleboards with 7-inch, like a fin. We only need 7 inches of water. We have all kinds of different paddleboards to do rescues, and we know that we're always, flooded out here, everywhere in Florida, inland and coastal. So it's a big hardship when we look at this now, and it's not just Indian Rocks. I brought this up in the sheriff's office. We had a meeting about it. Maybe having some type of space for first responders. We carry a lot of gear. We have a lot of heavy equipment that we need to get down to our beaches, and we rely on a lot of volunteers and other nonprofits to support our community, especially in times of need of, these hurricanes coming up. So we need something, I think, maybe established here with that. I do know that there's a lot of different money out here. Pinellas Recovery has $813 million right now for the Pinellas Recovery Grant. Not to complain about what you're trying to do. I know but there's a lot of money. You can partner with a lot of nonprofits that can also bring in money for infrastructure, especially if we look at ourselves as a water rescue training center. So that's something I would leave here with you guys, so maybe we can talk about that in the future. So we are now going to be Operation Blue Sky. What I do with, we bring out first responders. So everybody in this are all doctors, nurses, licensed healthcare professionals. I'm bringing our hospital out into the street here. We carry our own water liability insurance, and we also are protected under the Good Samaritan law as licensed healthcare professionals. So I'm just addressing this issue, and it's something I think that we should all look at along our coastline of maybe doing something better of where we can bring this response out to our beaches and not have to worry about this parking issue for first responders. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, Scott.
Merry New Year. Scott Shapiro, 2032 20th Avenue Parkway. So sometimes you come here, it feels like Groundhog Day, though, right? We hear the same thing. So I'm gonna say something new. I saw a lizard today. The sky was blue and the sunset was amazing. But we all can agree that we want the laws enforced. Federally, state, city, county, whatever they be. We all need to follow the law. So it is concerning that, again, looking through the agenda, there's no additions or deletions. There's nothing on here about short-term rentals or the boards. Why is there nothing about either of those? We got people running on all those things. And you guys are the only ones, the only time you can talk about it is here, tonight, in front of us. So, who's got the courage to make an addition? Who up there has got the courage? I challenge you guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. Anyone else? Okay, I'm officially closing the public comment. And we'll move on to the reports of the city attorney.
I have nothing to report on the agenda.
Could you address this enforcement issue? Because you and I have talked about it, about how enforcement works in Indian Rocks Beach.
Sure. So, I can't speak to what was done before I became city attorney.
Can you go?
I can't speak to what was done before I became city attorney. Since we became city attorneys at Shoemaker, we have been scheduling bi-monthly, twice a month, all-day magistrate hearings, and we're bringing short-term rental violators before the magistrate. We're starting with the ones that have taken no effort to register, just because that seems like the logical choice. And those are scheduled, I think. I don't know if the dates are actually set, but we discussed the dates through April, so twice a month. I actually had a conversation with Mike Kelly earlier today that the numbers of those that are coming into compliance is drastically increased. I think if you look at the reports that are posted monthly, you'll see a significant decrease in number of those that are in violation. We do have some that are still in litigation, and I can't speak to those right now, but those have stopped enforcement on those particular properties because of the litigation. But I do know that our ordinances are being enforced at this time as quickly and aggressively as possible. I feel like we're making a lot of progress. I think we're seeing a lot more voluntary compliance, and the ones that we've taken before the magistrate are being brought into compliance. There are a handful, like I said, that are in litigation that may seem like they're not moving along, but because of the litigation, it kind of put a toll on our enforcement ability while we litigate more. I will say that, I know that Fort Myers was brought up, and I'm not sure what's different from their ordinance from ours, because it sounds very similar in that if you don't have these things, you can't operate. But as a city enforcement, our only ability is to take violators either to a special magistrate, to a code enforcement board, or to the county judge. We chose a special magistrate at this city because the number and frequency that we want to pursue those, we can set the schedule. County code enforcement, when we file a citation, it takes about 2 to 3 months, depending on the date that it's filed, before you can get before the judge. And that's for an arraignment. And then you come back 30 days later for a pretrial, and then you come back 30 days later for a trial. So we opted for a magistrate because we skip all that process. We deem these to be irrevocable and irreparable injuries because they rented a short-term rental without even attempting to comply with our ordinance. So there's no notice, there's no 10 days to cure. They're cited, they're brought before the magistrate. Now, prior to me being here, there was a slew of those done and resulted in quite a bit of lawsuits being filed. Working through those, I feel strongly about our position in those cases, and we had quite a few of the magistrate orders get appealed, so we can't enforce the ordinance against the properties that are currently in appeal because they're challenging the magistrate. Since we came on board out of the 40 or so probably that we had trials on, there's only 2 of those that filed appeals. So the number of appeals has significantly dropped. I believe that once we get the rulings back from the Circuit Court Appellate Division on all the pending appeals, it will end a lot of the delay in waiting on those because the other property owners are going to see that the challenging the ordinance to an appeal is not successful. Now, I feel strongly about that. I could be wrong. The court could come back and give a different opinion on those appeals. But my opinion is we're going to be successful, and that's really going to turn the corner on those problem properties. Our hands are tied with those, as it would be any jurisdiction. But if people are operating, our ordinance also says they can't list it on Airbnb or VBRO or any of the other short-term rental sites. However, we can't go to their house and put a lock and a chain on there. If they're renting it, they're in violation of the ordinance, and they have to be given due process and taken before a magistrate and have a hearing and an opportunity to be heard, because that's the judicial system we have in the United States. And the city of Indian Rocks Beach has to comply with those due process requirements. We did do it as expeditiously as possible by hiring a magistrate and increasing the number of days that we meet, 2 full days every month. With the workload on the magistrate and our staff and the city staff, it doesn't seem practical to add a 3rd day. But you know, we're seeing how it goes, and if we need to do that, we will. But I think you'll see in the new reports that will be filed that the numbers have significantly changed in the compliance. I know it looks like that a couple of the properties were not doing anything, but our hands are tied until they're out of the court system. But I believe that it's being enforced very strongly.
Thank you. And then in the case of Fort Myersby, I mean, that's how they would have to shut them down there as well. They'd have to take them in front of a court.
As the local jurisdiction, they'd have to take them either in front of the county court or a magistrate and have a hearing and an order. You're looking 60 to 90 days at the shortest on any of those. So although if they're in violation, you have to go through that process to stop them. You can't come in and just shut things down through a city ordinance violation.
Okay. But that's what I thought. I thought we are enforcing the ordinance. This is the method we're doing it, and I just wanted to take out all the confusion about that.
Not working. Thank you. I feel strongly that we are enforcing it. I can't speak to what was done prior. I feel like that there's a lot of variables with the storm and the delay, but I don't think we're here to talk about that. We're talking about what we're doing now, and I feel very strongly about our progress, and I feel good about it.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions of our attorney?
Nope.
Then I'm going to move on to the report of the city manager.
Thank you, Mayor and Commission. I want to just take this opportunity to let our community, our neighbors know that beginning on January 23rd, Friday, at 8 a.m., we're going to start doing a program where we host neighbors to come into City Hall, meet with staff, calling it Coffee at City Hall. Opportunity for staff to engage with the community to continue engaging with the staff. I'll take on probably the first topic based off kind of what comes out of tonight's meeting and make that the focus of the next coffee at City Hall. But over time, we'll do presentations from our staff and our departments, just so this community can stay informed and up to date about what's going on in our community and how we're going about certain things. And so I want to welcome the community again, January 23rd, 8 a.m., and we'll look at establishing this as the fourth Friday of every month. Beth mentioned it, just want to echo, please, we welcome our neighbors to come out for the joyous occasion of reopening up our library. It's been a monumental effort by staff, but by also the friends of Indian Rocks Beach Library. And so 10 a.m., come out. It's a joyous occasion. It's a celebration. We want everybody to have a good time and see the new library, the renovated library. So that's January 24th. So a couple of opportunities to see everybody out here at City Hall, 23rd and the 24th. Thank you.
Thank you. Now move on to the report of the City Commission. Judith, do you have anything this evening?
I don't.
Mr. Bigelow?
Nothing this evening.
I'm also going to pass in favor of the discussions that we have coming up. So nothing to report.
Vice Mayor?
I do have a report. As a commissioner, I made a commitment to represent IRB in organizations that focus on legislative matters in addition to my work here in IRB. As we all recognize, the Florida legislature continues to work to place restrictions on cities that make local decision-making tough. Smaller municipalities, such as us, representing just a few thousand voters, are easier to overlook than coalitions of cities working together. Florida League of Cities represents all 411 cities in the state and recognizes the need for smaller regional groups of cities to join together on issues representative of their area. I am thrilled to announce that we are now going to be part of Suncoast League of Cities. We're once again joining, and it represents Pinellas, Hillsborough, and Pasco counties. As you all know, that's a lot of votes, and that gets us a lot of attention. Throughout the legislative session that started this week, members of Suncoast League of Cities advocacy team are going to be traveling to Tallahassee to educate the legislators as to how the various bills will directly affect our city as well as the other cities in our region. I will be traveling to Tallahassee next week as part of the SCLOC advocacy team, and the following week as part of the Florida League of Cities advocacy team. My goal during these visits is to make sure your voices are heard on bills that can greatly impact how our city operates going forward. In addition to the bills related to taxation, there are two others that I'm going to be closely following over the next week or so. One is House Bill 48, which relates to ADUs and a city's ability to place restrictions on them, and also House Bill 145 relating to litigation limits on suits against governmental agencies. So anytime you have a question about what's going there, I'm trying to keep a really good tab on it. And this is my book of how to contact representatives and legislators. And I will be excited to work with, there's kind of a mentorship that goes along with Suncoast League of Cities that they will kind of walk me through and teach me how to do it. So I'm very excited to represent us the next couple of weeks.
Thank you. Well, this Friday, our new city manager is going to meet Nick DeSigley, and we're going to sit down with him and kind of talk to him about what's going on in Tallahassee, as well as maybe see what other kind of dollars we can get him to cough up for some city projects. So I'm really looking forward to that. So we're going to move on to work session items, the property tax reform presentation.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening. And as the Vice Mayor was commenting, today was the first day of the Florida legislative session, and there are, among a multitude of bills that have been presented, there are quite a few that are looking to reform property taxes. And so this presentation will just go over some of what those bills are, what their impacts are, and then some steps kind of going forward as to not only the city of Indian Rocks Beach, but certainly, as the Vice Mayor stated, collectively numerous cities can do to address what are the proposed changes. There have been 8 resolutions bills that have been introduced already at the 2026 Florida Legislative Session to alter or amend existing property tax processes. Quite a few of them have already had some press coverage, media, and I'm certain that they will continue. These proposals are mainly to alter property taxes for homesteaded properties. We do get questions from folks as to the difference between a homestead and a non-homestead, and just, I think as most everyone is aware, particularly if a homesteaded property is one that you have title to, it's your primary residence, you live in it, you put your head to your bed, to your pillow, that's your primary residence, and then you're subject to receiving certain benefits under the Florida Constitution. Any of these bills, if they are adopted by the legislature, signed into law by the governor, will then require a statewide voter approval of at least 60% in the November election. And likely the effective date of any of these bills that become law would take place on January 1 of 2027. Any of the impacts of these proposed changes will likely impact the budgets, not just for the city of Indian Rocks Beach, but all local governments in fiscal year 2028, with possibly some as early as fiscal 27. So 6 of the 8 bills and what their impacts are to City of Indian Rocks Beach. The main one is eliminating property taxes for homestead properties for all essentially categories except for schools. So exempt homestead properties from all ad valorem or property taxes except schools. The bill also prohibits cities from reducing the total funding for law enforcement, again beginning with your fiscal 28 budget. The impact to the City of Indian Rocks Beach, and I was starting to calculate this last week until the Pinellas County property appraiser sent out an email, and thank you for forwarding that from the commission, I think the vice mayor or the mayor. And they created an online tool where each taxing authority or each city, each special district can go online and see what your impact is using actual property valuation data. If this bill were to become law and then voters approved it, all property owners who have a homesteaded property would then see a reduction in their property taxes. The impact collectively to the City of Indian Rocks Beach, as it stands now, would be about $917,000 less in property tax revenue, or about a 25% reduction in the general fund. I'll just go through these somewhat quickly. The other bills, another proposal is increasing the homestead exemption, again, except schools by $100,000 over a 10-year period until property taxes are phased out, again, except for schools. Collectively for here in Indian Rocks Beach, it would be about a reduction of $189,000. If the next one for eliminating, again, non-school property tax for homesteaded properties for persons 65 and older, again, the impact would be a little over $500,000, again, reduced. So you can see the kind of the tone here is these bills, if adopted, again, approved by voters, would end in a reduction in property tax revenue to Indian Rocks Beach, but certainly all other cities and counties. This one, if the home value exemption increased to 25% of the taxable value of a property after other exemptions, you can see the reduction. And another large one, an additional $200,000 exemption for those who maintain a comprehensive multi-peril property insurance policy, a reduction of $360,000 to the city's general fund. And the last one, if there was an unlimited cap on porting, that's if you move and you can take your homestead valuation with you, a much smaller impact to the City of Indian Rocks Beach. I think hopefully most of you are familiar. Here's it's a little tough to see from the back, but it's kind of a table of what are property tax, also, or the millage rate, who actually sets those rates. Here in Indian Rocks Beach, the tax rate is 1.73. In the chart, the table on the screen shows that represents 11% of a total property tax bill. So all property tax owners pay different rates to the different governments and special districts that are listed up there, from the county to obviously schools to the Juvenile Welfare Board, Pinellas Suncoast Transit Authority, etc. And a property here in Indian Rocks Beach pays a total millage or tax rate of 15.8672, which is essentially $15.87 for every $1,000 in value. And just to refresh, the City of Indian Rocks Beach only sets its tax rate for the City of Indian Rocks Beach. The Commission does not have really any authority or control to set the millage rates for the school board, for the county. They can certainly have conversations, attend the public hearings, just as all of you are able to attend all of those public hearings. An Indian Rocks Beach property taxpayer here, and this is just a breakdown of the previous slide, 40 cents out of every dollar goes to pay for schools, 38 cents to the services that Pinellas County provides, 11 cents actually go to the City of Indian Rocks Beach, as I said, 11% of the total tax bill, and then the other 11 cents go to the smaller, the special districts that I mentioned, like Juvenile Welfare Board and the Transit Authority. Just a quick overview of property tax calculation. Hopefully all property owners are familiar. If not, please feel free to call and ask, and we can help you go through this. You take your assessed taxable value, divide it by 1,000, and multiply by the millage rate. The examples up on the screen are, again, for a property in the City of Indian Rocks Beach. If it had a taxable value of $650,000, they would pay approximately $1,124.50 to the City of Indian Rocks Beach. Another way to look at it is for every $100,000 in taxable value of a property, an Indian Rocks Beach property, the taxpayer pays approximately $173 for every $100,000 in assessed value. The next page gives you an actual, and I know it might be difficult for the back, but it's an actual tax bill of a property here in Indian Rocks Beach, just showing all the taxing authorities, what their millage rates are. And again, millage rates are going to differ among each city and each taxing authority. For this property, where the assessed assessed value a little over $390,000, it is a homestead property, so they do receive the exemptions of $25,000 for schools, a little over $50,000 for the other taxing authorities. They end up paying a total tax bill of $5,558. Under the proposed House Joint Resolution, or the proposed bill, which is number 201, the impact on this property, should that were to become law and be approved by voters, this property would only pay property taxes on the school portion of their tax bill. So taking into account the information on the previous slide, their new tax bill would be about a 59% decrease. They would only be paying the taxes to the school taxing authorities. So what is an impact means that the city and the county and the other taxing authorities would see a reduction in their revenue. A lot of questions from a lot of certainly cities and counties that we provide a multitude of services. So what happens to the revenue? The taxpayer will pay less, a homestead taxpayer pays less, but again, the cities and the counties see lower revenue. Does that mean your budget is less, and does that translate into reduced services? Those are questions, and the impacts do vary from city and county. Again, the impact, if the first bill were adopted here, would be a reduction of 25% of the city's general fund. Impacts to other cities are significantly higher. Some of our neighboring cities would see as much as a reduction or a loss of over 60% of their general fund revenue. So there's one city that has a budget of $9 million in their general fund. They would be losing over $6 million, or almost $6 million. How are they going to be able to manage that? That's a difficult question and decision to do. This slide just shows here in Indian Rocks Beach the assessed values of all homestead properties versus non-homestead properties. And due to some of the comments regarding an ordinance that the city adopted a couple years ago, there are fewer homesteaded properties today than there were just a few years ago. So the number and the percentage of non-homestead properties have grown faster than homestead. Therefore, the impact to the city of Indian Rocks Beach is a little bit less. Should the first bill be adopted, in which case there would be a reduction of, again, the revenue from property taxes. And again, just to reiterate, the proposed legislation, again, would only impact, as it stands now, homestead properties. This slide just shows a little bit of a history back to 2021 of the city's ad valorem, or the tax rate, which shows a decrease. Indian Rocks Beach currently has a fairly low tax rate relative to most of the other cities in Pinellas County. However, you can see that the total, or the taxable assessed value citywide, has increased, and it has increased a good amount. I think anything over 7 or 8% is pretty good for an increase, and consequently the amount of property taxes or ad valorem taxes have increased. But just to show that that's what's been happening, and pretty much throughout Pinellas County, there were a few exceptions, some coastal cities due to last year's storms, but overall, this is a little bit of the narrative that is coming out from the legislature, and certainly out of Tallahassee, as a reason why there needs to be some property tax reform. Not everybody agrees with that, but that's been some of the reason behind it. So what does that leave cities and counties, including the city of Indian Rocks Beach, is really to what are property taxes used for? Why do they exist? I think hopefully as many are aware that it's the largest revenue source for most cities and counties, and it's used to pay for the general government services that we all receive, from law enforcement, certainly to public works, the administration. It pays for vital services, from the insurance the city needs to certainly capital and construction projects. So it helps to keep a high quality of life. This slide, and these slides are available on the city's website in the city's budget, but we will be creating a link that will have this information. So for anyone who ever has questions, where does the city get its money from and what does the city spend it on, you can go directly on the city's website and see this. And this slide simply shows for the last few years the actual revenue that the city has received and where it has come from. And at the top, property taxes, as I said, has been the single largest source of revenue to provide those general government services, 62% for the current budgeted year. And you can see there are a few other taxes and other fees in the general fund, but just to keep in mind, as I stated earlier, the tax levy, or the tax rate, millage rate, Indian Rocks Beach, the city has done a good job of managing its financial responsibilities by keeping a low millage rate. This city also does not levy a few taxes or at least one main tax that many other cities. It's called the utility or the public service tax. And there's a communications tax is quite low. It's actually the lowest in the county. So just for more information, this is a slide in the city's current year budget, again, just showing the percentages in a pie chart. Again, showing the importance of property tax. It makes up 62% of the city's general fund for the current year. So what does the city spend the money on? And this is a listing by departments and the services that are, not the service, but just the headings of departments, from, again, the administration, the commission, the manager, finance, the attorney, et cetera, all the way down through law enforcement, which makes up over a quarter of the city's general fund. And again, just to reiterate, the proposed legislation has a requirement that you cannot reduce law enforcement expenses. So cities and counties will continue to have to fund them and cannot reduce the funding for, again, to provide law enforcement. And followed by public works, again, keeping the city clean, keeping the rights of way, parks, keeping the city looking beautiful and pretty, keep making sure that residents have a high quality of life, and keep attracting visitors and tourists to the city. And again, just a pie chart showing, again, the two largest areas where the city spends money on are law enforcement. Again, hopefully all of you are aware, we do contract with the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office, and again, public works and keeping the city clean and running well. So where does this kind of end? What's the next steps? Well, continue to monitor the legislative process, as the Vice Mayor mentioned, through the Florida League of Cities, the Suncoast League of Cities, and various other organizations. Keep watching, listening, monitoring. Are these bills good for cities and counties? I think the answer from many is no, from some, yes. It does provide some reductions for homestead property owners. However, it leaves cities and counties with some significant decisions. How are you going to manage the future budgets? Also, from the League of Cities, the Florida Association of Counties, and other cities, and I believe the Vice Mayor and the Mayor mentioned how to really local decisions. Do residents, property owners, business owners want their decisions coming from Tallahassee? Community standards differ from city to city. It's important that residents and property owners, everyone who's here tonight, everyone who's here, to give your thoughts, your ideas, your comments as you have on the decision of where the city of Indian Rocks Beach should go, what services to provide, how to provide them. That's very important, and we'd like to keep those decisions local. So we will be adding this information and more, particularly what are property taxes used for, what do they pay for, what are the values, how do they lead to a high quality of life for all of our residents and property owners. This is the Florida League of Cities. There are already some campaigns out there to help explain a lot of the data that I provided in the information. The League of Cities is calling it the Florida Formula, kind of a property tax educational toolkit. Again, what are property taxes? Who makes those decisions? What do they pay for? And also the Florida Association of Counties. And there are already a few of our neighboring cities, and I'll just mention them because they've been very helpful. Bel Air, Safety Harbor, Gulfport have put on their websites a lot of this information, mainly titling it Understanding Your Property Taxes. It is important because all of you are contributing to that, and they are very important. They do help fund, again, a significant percentage of all the services that not just the city of Indian Rocks Beach, but Pinellas County also provides. So please feel free to reach out. Anyone at any time has any questions, you don't understand, there's a truth and millage worksheet that comes out. The cities typically only discuss a lot of this information in September when you have public hearings about the budget or the initial budget meetings in July, but this is very important information. It's important that cities maintain transparency, accountability, financial responsibility, and that's what we are here to do. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions or comments. And I'm sorry, I didn't introduce myself. I'm Robin Gomez, the Interim Finance Director for the City of Indian Rocks Beach.
Does anyone have any questions?
I would just comment, I think it's obvious to everybody, if if the first option gets passed, that's not quite $1 million out of our budget. And if you look at our two big hitters, those are almost $3 million right there. So we'd be left with about $900,000 to cover the rest of our needs for the city. So just something to think about. I mean, I know as a property owner, homesteaded, gosh, it would be great not to pay taxes, but I also really love my city. So just want everybody to think about that.
Another thing that if you want to go to Florida League of Cities website, you can scroll down to where it says Understanding Municipal Property Taxes, and then you can click the Access Toolkit, and then you'll see a little informative video that they put out called Dollars Spent. And then if you scroll down, it'll say your city, your numbers, and it'll give you an alphabetical list. And one of the things that I was able to do when I was at conference in August was request that our city be one of the ones that had a toolkit made by Florida League of Cities. So we're on there, and you can see our information as part of it.
Thank you, and we'll continue to update that as the year.
Yeah.
I also just wanted to reiterate that only 11% of your property taxes go to this city. Everything else goes elsewhere. And tell me again what the percentage is that goes to schools.
Almost 40%.
So 40%. So even if this thing is passed and you think, oh great, I don't have to pay property taxes anymore, you're going to pay still almost half of what you're paying now, and everybody else will lose everything. So, please contain your enthusiasm for a crazy idea.
But this is a ballot issue that will be made in November, correct?
Yes, if the bills are adopted, then it would be before voters in November.
Right, so that's when we need to pay attention. It's on election day. Save our city. Because what's our plan to replace $917,000? Robin Goodman.
We'll get very creative.
Well, I will say, Mayor and Commissioner, I think that, and certainly in light of the conversation to have later tonight, a lot of cities are looking at where do you make that up? Not that you would make that up completely, but what do you do? And I think you're going to start seeing a lot of cities look at their fee structure and make changes to that based off of what the state is talking about. And I know even today the governor and the state focused on property tax reform, right? So, I mean, this is something that we're all contemplating, we all have to deal with, we all have to come to terms with at some point, either this year or in the future years, because I don't think this is going to, whatever happens this year, this doesn't die, right, on the vine. This will continue having, the state will continue having this conversation. So, I do think that we're in a position where we have to assess everything, and I think other cities are also doing that as well.
Thank you. Well, let's move on to additions and deletions. Does anybody have anything they want to add?
Sorry to disappoint Scott.
We got enough of it.
I think we're interested in adding a citizens advisory board.
That sounds great. But tonight's going to be.
I just want to put it out there that we are interested in picking members for a citizens advisory board.
Understood.
Do we need to vote on that?
Are you proposing adding it to the next agenda or today?
Yeah.
The next agenda?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, if you're just given direction, you just need a consensus that you want us to investigate that and to bring something back.
Okay.
I don't think we need a formal vote.
And the preference would be under work session, rather than voting on anything to
Okay.
flesh it out.
Take a roll call.
You can. I mean, it's not a formal item, so I don't think we need a vote, but generally everybody is in agreement that you want to explore that in the next meeting. That's all we need.
I'm good.
Are you in agreement? Okay.
I'm in agreement.
All right, so we're all in agreement. Let's add it to the next agenda.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Scott. Next, I need a motion for the consent agenda.
I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. We'll move on to the public hearings. Ordinance number 2026-01. This is a public hearing and a first reading. An ordinance of the City of Indian Rocks Beach, Florida, amending Chapter 62 of the Code of Ordinances, amending Section 62-31, parking violation fines, creating Section 62-39, paid meter parking on beach accesses, establishing a schedule of hours for paid meter parking, establishing a process for setting the hourly rates for paid metered parking, providing exemptions, providing for applicability, repealer, severability, codification, and an effective date on first reading. I am opening the public hearings.
Hi, I'm Beth McMillan, 481 Harbor Drive South. Those who have paid attention to what has been going on in Indian Rocks Beach over the last few years know that this didn't happen in a vacuum. Indian Rocks Beach is a small beach community with limited infrastructure, limited parking, and limited ability to expand. Yet we now have over 1,300 short-term rentals operating in this small city. That represents an extraordinary concentration and a massive increase in transient visitors cycling through a 2.5-mile long barrier island with only one lane in both directions. A city that sees an average of over 1,800 vehicles a day, and much more during the busy seasons, and only has 182 beach access parking spaces available for the public. For decades, parking in IRB was tight but manageable. What changed wasn't residents' expectations, it was the scale of tourism, driven largely by state policies that prioritize visitors and investors over the people who actually live here. Tallahassee has made tourism promotion a top priority while repeatedly stripping cities of local control to regulate short-term rentals even when communities can clearly demonstrate harm. Paid parking is not the cause of the problem, it's a symptom. The real issue is the strain on infrastructure, beach accesses, and neighborhoods created by the explosive growth of short-term rentals. This is acknowledged in the city ordinance, chapter 62, section 35, on this issue that says, quote, "In recent years, the decentralized operation of vacation rentals in residential districts facilitated by various online platforms has augmented the intensity of the demands made on the city's resources, including parking by transient visitors and traffic management," unquote. This is not imagined by residents. It is the elephant in this room as to why paid parking is now being implemented. We all know that tourism is important to Florida, but there has to be a balance. Right now, locals are being squeezed out of their own community, competing for parking, absorbing enforcement, and losing access to the very beaches they support year-round. IRB isn't alone in this, but it's a clear example of what happens when state policy ignores local capacity. I believe that most IRB residents wish for anything more than to turn back time and restore the community to the way it was before these changes occurred. Most of our residents are very protective of the city, and they want to preserve Indian Rocks, despite the enormous pressure placed on the city by investors to develop it further eroding what we all love about this city. Unfortunately, we are now faced with the implementation of paid parking, which is yet another setback for the locals. Tourism is benefiting the state and investors, while the burdens are falling on the people who actually live here, and that imbalance isn't fair or sustainable. No doubt, this is a difficult and unpopular step for many, especially for those who may not fully understand the challenges the city is facing or why action is now being considered. This is something our community has been talking about for years. And as tourism has grown while our infrastructure is restricted, there simply haven't been any easy answers. This isn't an ideal solution, but it is a response to a very real constraints facing a small beach community. For that reason, I appreciate the council's willingness to move forward and take action, even knowing it will be disappointing to many. And please, Mr. Henderson, you're welcome to take this to Mr. DeSigley and let him know this is how I feel. Thank you.
Diane Daniel, 309 10th Avenue. I just want to say that I think it would be really nice if there is something like an annual pass for people who live in the area, because it's something that tourists wouldn't use, and that way we really would be helping the locals and make it a reasonable fee. So if they really do come here, which a lot of people have been on social media, they come all the time walking, it would be nice to allow them to have a decal. I do think we should have paid parking. I don't know, Denise, if this is something that you are going to mention, but it said in the media that you're thinking of not having paid parking during the week. I would prefer to see if we're going to make concessions, which I think is not a bad idea, to start it a little later in the morning, and then that way people who do walk in the morning can walk. But that's not really when people go to the beach per se, so I think you would be able to satisfy everyone. So I would like to see something for the people who live nearby. I think that would be really great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jack Berlin. I'm the president of the Driftwood Sands Condominium Association at 2618 Gulf Boulevard. Let me first thank you for your service leading our great community. The Driftwood Sands Condominium Association is strongly in favor of paid parking in Indian Rocks Beach, especially on weekend and evenings. Driftwood Sands is made up of 45 units, mostly retirees like myself, with about 50% local owners, again like me, and about 50% winter visitors. Most of us don't rent, and none of us mind sharing the beach with visiting guests. We just want common courtesy and respect. To us, a plastic glass of wine at sunset is our passion. The advertisement for our beach should not be bring your cooler of beer and your boombox and litter our beach for free. Where is it written that Indian Rocks Beach has to be the only nice beach in Florida with free parking? Please have the people using our beach help pay for the upkeep of our community. As you know, owners here are spending enough on their tax bills already. We disagree that folks driving across the bridge are adding much to our retail establishments. 90% come cooler in hand, enjoy, then leave, mostly to the north, to the Bel Air Causeway. And it is the weekend and after 5 crowd that are the worst. The later in the day it gets, the drunker and louder our visitors get. This is not a family-friendly beach at times, and some of our mine owners have felt uneasy with members of the beach crowd and their dogs, and we've had owners' family members need stitches from broken glass on the beach. We don't want to police the beach. We want to enjoy it and share it with others that respect it. Residents of IR Beach pay a pretty high price to live here, and it is only right that people that use our beaches share the cost of taking care of our small community. Perhaps it is because we're on the unfashionable north end, but the cars that park at our beach access approach from the north and depart to the north. They are not spending money on our retail establishments. All of IRB's parking spaces will remain full, but perhaps now it will be by people that don't think $18 is too much money for our incredible beach. Perhaps it'll be with families that bring soft drinks instead of beer bottles. My hypothesis is that people that pay for parking will be more likely to spend money at our retail shops and restaurants than those looking for the cheapest day possible. Please add paid parking to our community. Please include evening and weekends. And finally, please use some of those proceeds for stronger code enforcement. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
My name is Mike Campbell still, and I still live at 80 Gulf Boulevard, which is right next to the public access on First, Avenue. I strongly object to imposing parking fees on that. Going to the beach is one of the few things that everybody can do. There are a ton of people who get out of the car outside my kitchen window who I can see could not afford $18 a day to come to the beach. Charging them $18 a day, or whatever it is, I will note that this first reading of the ordinance doesn't tell us anything about what's proposed, period. But it certainly doesn't have anything to do with beer on the beach, with dogs on the beach, with all of the other enforcement issues that I mentioned before, that we are not enforcing the law. And this does nothing except make the beach exclusive to people who can afford it. And you say, oh, $18. Well, there are a lot of people, I see the cars every day, they come to the beach every day. They can't afford $18 a day, every day, 5 days a week, 7 days a week. It's a silly proposal, and I would recommend that you deep six it pronto.
Hello, my name is James Beckner. I do not live on Indian Rocks Beach anymore. I moved off the beach a few years ago, but I did live on 24th Ave. And for 20 years, every morning, I pick up the beach, the trash. I've been doing it forever along with other folks. This is the little bag that I've given to a lot of us that do it. Mother Earth thanks you. I love the signs. Please leave nothing but your footprints in the sand. But unfortunately, a lot of the guests that come to our beach do not do that. It is very aggravating at times to see some of the trash that is left. But with the parking, there's a bunch of us that are there every morning, usually between 6 and 9, let's say, early in the morning. Bonnie, who most of you probably know, she arrives at 4:45 and probably doesn't leave till 9, walks back and forth from 15th to the Tiki Gardens back and forth twice every day. And it's been doing that for like 13, 14 years. So we have a concern that we're gonna have to pay to park to go down and pick up the beach. I think someone mentioned it earlier, would it be possible to start at say 9? Because there's really nobody coming down early in the morning, unless they're walking, you know, people getting their exercise, communing with nature and the beach. But the folks, we don't see people coming out there and setting up tents and their blankets and all that, really kind of digging in to spend time on the beach. So that would be a good, solution there. But that's one of the concerns we have, was all of us that go down there in the morning, paying the park just doesn't make sense to us. So I just wanted to say thank you for hearing.
Thanks for cleaning up the beach.
Good evening. My name is Xavier Maki, and business owner on 2300 Gold Boulevard. My concern about the parking is we are a private property, and it's already a nightmare to get rid of it to people who park all day long, affect the business, not only mine, but all the street mall. And I would like to, for the new people living in Indian Long Beach, even my accent, I'm not from America, but I know Indian Beach for 30 years now, and I'm living here for 23. Close of the 2300, the street mall, it was another street mall, and this property was bought by the county, and it was planned to make a parking space, and the Indian Beach supposed to get some part of this money, the county invest. The ex-mayor of this time was living close of this lot, and he went against, so the county got rid of it of the land, and it's vacant for, I don't know, maybe 10 years now. My concern is you are going to make money on parking and have to spend money to protect my business, or on security parking guy, or a video camera. I already got a code for the video camera, it cost me $8,000. And on the top of that, I cannot call any code enforcement or officer to get rid of it, of this bad parking spot in Oslo, because if I go to argue with my French accent, I must be the bad foreigner, so this is my concern. Pay or not pay, it must affect my business and the property, because already we've signed everywhere, and everybody know, nobody read the sign. They don't care, so they park, they might not pay, and even you got like a pass, like you say, for the local, if the parking is taken, you have no way to park your own car, even you got a pass for the local Indian Beach living here. So my concern is, or you have to change the law. I can call the code enforcement who can make a ticket, or and I still be the bad guy. Anyway, I used to. So the thing is, for the private property, it must be more complicated. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
My name is Barry Eagle. I live at 2200 Gulf Boulevard. I think while residents, full-time residents for sure, support local businesses, there needs to be some way, and that's what we need you people to do, to balance between the needs of fiscal responsibility to the town and ensuring that the local businesses that we still want to have here remain active. As far as locals and the parking situation, we have a small condominium, under 20 units. We have 2 parking spaces for residents. We have visitors parking spots. But having the 4 spaces available for people from Indian Rocks allows us, if we have visitors, to park a car out there and to relinquish our spot to our visitor who's staying there. So there has to be a mechanism to allow local residents who pay taxes, who live in this town, to be able to utilize the beach. And I'm speaking for people not necessarily in our building, which is on the beach, but all of the residents. And so ensuring that the parking stickers stay in operation for local residents is critical. The other thing that I have heard, and I do not know whether it's valid, is that there was some discussion that we would just have open parking spaces and your sticker would mean you don't have to pay. That means 0 at sunset, on weekends, during spring breaks. You should see the fighting to get spots on our street, the beach access, for people who think that they should be in, they jam up to the private citizens parking spots, and then they're all upset they have to leave. Well, they have to leave because someone coming from further in our area, whether it's on the bay side or one of the fingers that go out into the bay, they need to be able to drive to the beach and park their cars. So whatever you decide to do and however you decide to balance the needs of the town versus the needs of business owners versus the needs of residents, please take care of the residents and make sure that all Indian Rocks Beach citizens have a place to park and don't have to fight for it most of the day. And as far as those people who can't afford it or can't come, that is a problem, I understand, but all of these visitors, you would be amazed at the diapers, the unmentionable things that are found on our beach access every day. Forget the food that they eat and the rats that they attract. It's a balancing act that you have to do on our behalf to take care of the residents, first and foremost. Thank you.
Thank you.
Amy McPherson, 2200 Gulf Boulevard. Some of these comments may be out of order, just because I was hoping that there would be a presentation of the ordinance, so we understood what was, I've read it. This is what I do for a living, so I understand what it says. But, so one of the things that Barry just had mentioned that I think we'd all like confirmation is that the resident parking spaces are staying. They're not going to be removed. And that in addition, to the extent that those spaces are full, if you have a resident parking space, you can park in one of the other spaces and you won't be charged, which is would be a little bit different than one. So can we get confirmation just from that? Because I think that would bring peace to some of us.
Well, I think that's what we're going to discuss
The ordinance
tonight.
but the ordinance has drafted, that's what it says.
Yeah.
Correct? Yes. Okay. One of the questions that I have, and it kind of loops into some of my previous comments related to code enforcement. So we already are having issues with enforcement of a variety of things. And we're not that big of a city to begin with, but we have 3 code enforcement staff members. My understanding is their primary hours of operation are Monday through Friday from 8 to 4. We're not going to have issues with parking Monday through Friday from 8 to 4. We're going to have issues related to enforcement on the weekends. So if we have to hire staff or pay staff overtime in order to enforce this, that just takes away from the revenue. And at what point is there a breaking point where we're spending more on enforcement than we are actually bringing in revenue? And so I want to understand what that looks like, because I think that's also important. What I don't want to have happen is the things that we already need enforcing. For example, what we've all been talking, the things that happen on the beach and happen after dark outside of our building at the beach parking is disgusting. It's deplorable. I have a young son who lives with us. The things that he has seen and witnessed in the parking after hours is disgusting. And there aren't people around to patrol or to pay attention to that. We have the sheriff's office who are great, but they have a more important job making sure that Gulf Boulevard stays safe for all of the pedestrians who are walking. So enforcement and how you're actually going to deal with that is important. The hours, I think, are a little off. I think they're way too early and they stay way too late. After sunset, the parking lot empties for the most part, with the exception of people who are staying to eat. And I think that the business have already suffered so much with the hurricanes and the storms, and now having people to pay for parking. In the city of IRB, the way our code was originally adopted, our parking space requirements for businesses, for condos, for apartment buildings is way lower. Can I just finish this thought?
Yes.
Okay. So our parking requirements are a lot less than other municipalities across the state. And
There we go, I think you should stop. Sorry.
And the reason for that is because we did have so much off-street parking. So there's a balance, it's kind of like a shared parking analysis. So once you start charging for that parking, the businesses are the ones who are gonna get hurt, and people are gonna try to park in those spaces. So there needs to be some balance so that they can continue to be successful and people can continue to come across the bridge for parking. Thank you.
Thank you.
John Thayer, 1819 Bay Boulevard. This is more like a point of order. In years past, when we were passing an ordinance, we had a first reading, we read the reading. We put it on the board, we read it, so everybody here understands what they're getting into. What does this mean? Okay, what is section 6231 parking fund? How does that affect us? What are the hours? What are the prices? Okay, if we've got an ordinance, and this is the first reading, we need to read it, and how can you have public comment on something? We don't even understand what you're doing yet. You did the same thing last month or this month before, time flies when you're having fun, could be 2 months, on the certified recovery representative. And the reading on that was a cluster. Nobody even had any idea what you're talking about. I guess we didn't learn from that. I spoke to that then. We need to, it says right there, the first reading was going to be presented by the city manager, Ryan Henderson. But we jumped right to public comment. We need to know what's the first reading. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mark Bodine, Cameron Cover Resort, 2402 Gulf Boulevard. I don't know if you guys remember, but a few years ago, we were able to pick up a couple of permits from the city that they hang from the rearview mirror, which identified our people at Cameron Cove Timeshare Resort as owners able to park in the beach access overnight. Please don't distinguish between weekly ownership and yearly ownership as far as owner parking at Cameron Cove Resort and the owners parking on the beach access. By charging for parking, you know what that's going to do? That's going to drive everybody across the street to park in the neighborhood parking where the services such as the police department, the fire department, the emergency service cannot even right now access a lot of those streets because of that. Please consider parking as far as still being free at this point. And if you decide to charge, please give Cameron Cove Resort weekly ownership consideration on parking stickers for our owners. Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, Don.
Hey. Don House, 2104 Beach Trail. About 20 years ago, I came down to this podium. And I what?
Luke. Okay. Boy, I be on the radio with this boy. About 20 years ago, I came down to this podium and said we should implement paid parking. Part of that was due to, for y'all who don't know, I live right between the middle of 21st and 22nd Street beach accesses. So, see a lot of traffic just trying to get back and forth between. But back about 20 years ago, it coincided with some stuff that was happening on Courtney Campbell. So we were getting a quality of visitors that I affectionately call the cream of the crop. And I hoped that we would do something with the paid parking to help dissuade that clientele. I don't have any problems, and I wholeheartedly endorse charging for parking to help control what we're looking at and see what's there. There's no reason not to, except that, you know, back then, a couple of things came up, and I don't know if I'm misremembering or not, but one of the things was we could not charge for parking because of the deal we made to get work done on the beach. Maybe I'm misremembering that. But then I'm also recalling that any money that was generated from parking on the beach had to be spent on the beach accesses and maintaining the beach. In other words, it couldn't go into the general revenue fund. I don't know if you can validate my 75-year-old brain says not, but anyway, those are a couple things that I remembered. But please do pay parking if it helps us control. Thank you.
Kelly Watt, 431 Harbor Drive South. So just a couple questions, comments, thoughts after reading through the ordinance. I agree with what was said earlier about please keep the resident reserved parking spots. There was some misinformation in some of the news stories that you were going to take that away. I think it was just incorrect reporting. But please keep the resident parking spots. I think also we were going to add the golf cart parking spots into that calculation as being part of the paid parking, so just bring that back up for your consideration. One thing I thought might be worth considering is perhaps a special parking decal for the golf carts themselves. I've heard some people say they would like that. Would be like a resident decal, but it'd be specific to the golf cart, maybe in the shape of a golf cart, so it looks different than the car decals. Just a thought. One question I did have in ordinance, it says if you have a resident decal, you don't have to pay for parking. Does that include the county lot? It does not. Okay, so I think that should just be clarified in whatever you're doing. There's some misunderstanding about that because it says otherwise. Regarding the spillover into the neighborhoods, I think that will probably happen. Perhaps maybe signs in the neighborhoods that say no beach parking would be helpful. I've seen businesses put no beach parking out so they don't, all their spots don't get taken up. And maybe we put those signs back in the neighborhood instead of no parking, maybe just no beach parking. That's maybe the compromise. And this is kind of a little bit of a side note, but I understand there are other organizations similar as Cameron Cove and others have said that may need some special considerations, such as the IRB Little League team. I think they have some parking issues, but Ryan, you probably know it better than I do. But something to think about, not for today, but just as we're talking about parking in general. Do they need something like a parking decal for themselves or reserve spots when they're having games and practices? I think that's part of kind of what they're bumping into. So those were my thoughts. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hi, Christine. Christine Hartman, 2207 Bay Boulevard. Thank you, everybody, for all you can't hear.
Can't hear.
Can you hear me better? No. All right. I'll do the best I can. Wanted to thank everybody for all your work, first of all, and spending time on this is really important. I want to just advocate one more time for folks that are able to come to the beaches that may not be able to afford the fees, especially if they like to stay at the beach for several hours. And I'd like some consideration for people that are low income or seniors that are on limited monthly incomes to be able to get to the beaches. So please consider that. It might be with the suggestion about the timing, the mornings being more open, maybe something like what the PSTA, the bus systems use, where there's special passes for people that qualify age-wise or income-wise. I really do believe that everyone deserves to be able to enjoy nature and this beautiful beach that we have. And, we have to be careful about the bias that may come in about limiting that and, be able to have the concerns taken care of, but also give some consideration for people that are not going to be able to afford this kind of a setting. So thank you for your thoughts. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lee Campbell, 80 Gulf Boulevard.
So we live next to the public access on First Avenue out, and then if you go off to the right, near the Intercoastal is First Street that goes right by Bill Galachi and JD's. So from what I understand, this parking would be put parking meters on the public access on First Avenue, but not on First Street. So I think that just wild guess that a lot more people are going to be parking on First Street to avoid the parking meter. And then crossing Gulf Boulevard where there is no crosswalk, there is no pedestrian light. It has always been kind of iffy how people do there because people are just now slowing as they come down to the City of Indian Rocks from Indian Shores. And to address that, I mean, because it seems like the choosing between the public access and other street parking is going to be a mess unless a plan is made for that to be part of it.
Thank you.
Sean Rowland, 1206 Gulf Boulevard. Free beach access is one of the amenities that makes IRB unique, in my opinion. Although I feel lucky to live here, I obviously have a different level of access, being able to go out to the beach in the morning, go out to the beach at night, at my convenience. The reality is this is a natural resource that doesn't belong to us. I think it's something that should be shared and appreciated with others. Solely from a revenue generation standpoint, every night I go out at sunset and over half of the IRB resident spots are occupied with people with vehicles that don't have hotels. I do think there's an opportunity of we're leaving money on the table. This has already been touched on, but I do feel that so many of the great small businesses we have here have been through a lot the last year and a half, particularly. I do worry that paid parking is going to have a detrimental impact to those businesses. We have friends from all over Pinellas that come, they'll spend the day here, they'll go get coffee, they'll grab lunch, and they'll spend significant money while they're here enjoying IRB, the beach. So that being said, I had a question as to whether or not there's been a impact study conducted on what impact this may have on our local businesses. Thanks.
Sorry, I was up here before, but I didn't get to explain about some of the things that I agree with. I agree about the...
Could you state your name, please?
Yeah, Nanette Prevost. I live just right over a bridge in Largo. I'm a surgery nurse at Morton Plant, 38 years, been down here for many, many years. I work a lot with senior citizens. I've been already hearing how upset they are about this. They don't have the money for beach parking. They can barely look at their phone and know how to read their emails, let alone try to figure out an app. I know some people that got ripped off already down at Madeira Beach with the app that they have. Somebody actually made a decal and put it over the app where you would scan it. And so they were literally getting like money ripped off. They were losing money because somebody had literally forged a little scan that they could put over that app when they scanned it. I feel for the people that, you know, what if your phone is dead? You have your family, you come down here and all of a sudden your phone's dead and you can't even like scan it to go to the beach. We're forgetting about all the other people that come and volunteer to clean up the beach. There's a lot of nonprofits that come out here and, you know, work on the beach. I'm trying to do getting a water rescue unit going. I have to train on the beach. I'm already, you know, volunteering a bunch of, you know, first responders and, you know, licensed professionals that we're volunteering our time. So now we have to turn around and pay for the beach that we're actually volunteering for free to save people. You know, we're stressed out. We work long hours in the operating room. That's where I work. You know, we just want to come here and relax after work and, you know, maybe run together. So we can't even do that now because you have to pay for that. I really think they need to relook at this as far as, you know, the whole charging, not just here on our beach. You know, maybe look at the tourist development tax, get an advocacy program for a bed tax. You know, look at the penny for Pinellas allocation. I think there's a lot of other ways that we can come up with some money other than charging people to pay, to go and, you know, this is a mental health thing for some people. Some people enjoy the water, you know, swimming and running and all kinds of stuff. This is more than just having to pay for the infrastructure, it's here as well.
Thank you.
Dan Mansberg, 442 Harbor Drive North. I hear a lot of people talk about the impacts this is going to have on businesses and people who don't live here in Indian Rocks Beach. I just think we need to remember that we don't have to support, Indian Rocks Beach doesn't have to support everybody else's entertainment. I mean, it's at the risk of sounding cold-hearted. Most of the pushback has come from people that are across the bridge that want to come here for free. The reason we're getting so much pushback is we are the last free beach. Now, if they want to have special stickers for free or people that are impoverished or something, that's fine, but make it all the way down all the beaches, not just Indian Rocks Beach supporting all of that. I've been asked to leave our tennis courts before so that somebody could conduct practice lessons there, somebody from Largo that was teaching tennis on our tennis court. So we have a lot of nice things here and it's nice to share, but the residents are getting pushed away from all those nice things that we support and maintain. So I just want to keep that in mind.
Good evening, Dave Watt, 431 Harbor Drive South. Some interesting things I never thought of before, so this is really great. My main point I want to make really, well, first of all, I'll say we've been here 23 years, and it always has been kind of a neat thing, kind of a vibe. Unfortunately, it has been brought up more and more, hurricanes, we're now talking about possible property taxes. The thing that I think everybody keeps saying, I don't think they mean it, it's not free, we're paying for it. So there's nothing free about anything, we all know that. It's being paid by the citizens, so whatever we end up with, there may be some, consensus of different ideas, but it's not free. Thank you.
Hey, Bob.
I'm your tonight, Denise, everyone. Bob Copeland, 447 20th Avenue. Can't hear me? Bob Copeland. Better? Yeah. 447 20th Avenue. Dave just prompted me, Dave Watt prompted me to come up and say something, which is, during your discussions, you can talk to Mr. Gomez. The expenses to maintain the beach access, be it the trash, be it the shrubbery, I can't swear it's the pavement, but the city pays to maintain those beach accesses, much less the beach walkways, that we talk about. But I guess every other street. Pardon? And every other street. So we pay to maintain those. So asking that non-residents who aren't contributing to the 11% of our taxes that we get to keep for Mr. Gomez and Mr. Henderson to run our city doesn't seem out of line. So I just, again, it's in the budget, it just doesn't have it as that line item. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Bob. Who else has a comment?
Hi, Susan Bell, 717 First Street. There's locals and there's residents. Okay, I live here. I don't expect to go to Clearwater Beach or down south and get free parking because I'm a local. I don't live there. I don't travel to other cities in Florida and expect free beach parking because I don't live there and I'm not a resident there. And it's not the city's responsibility to look at somebody's income tax return to see if they can afford to go to the beach. There's already overflow parking in the neighborhoods, and paid parking or not, is not going to make a difference. It's still going to be the same amount of cars. Thank you.
Thank you. Hey, Matt.
Matthew Barraclough, 211 11th Avenue. As the only city commission candidate, I'm the only one that's absolutely against paid parking for a number of reasons. One, I think it's an attack on broader population. reducing access, that also limits exercise, volunteer groups want to improve the city. There's a lot of anger at short-term rental for trying to own it because it supposedly decreases the parking availability. Well, none of my guests park at the beach. Parking is used by people in the county, people outside the county, who come here for the day. I think this is a tremendous resource we have. We should take pride in being the last city in the county to have access to it. There's something about that. We've been able to sustain that for so many years. And why we're doing it now is I think, the wrong move to take. We've bounced back far better than any other city along the beaches. And I think it's an opportunity to put that shine light back on the city. So many other towns in this county have lost sight of it. Paid parking only limits people from the rest of the county coming and exploring, enjoying, utilizing the beaches, whether they're coming in for the gym workouts in the morning, they're walking on the beach at night, they're seeing sunset. It's not going to solve the financial demands that the city is expecting it to solve. There's far, far better ways. And if I'm so honored to sit up there in April, I'm going to come with a lot better ideas on how we can get more revenue that's not taking it from everywhere else that's not important to the city. So I ask that the city commission really consider what losing beach access to the public is going to entail, and what it's going to do to not just the businesses, but also just the general atmosphere of Indian Rock Beach. Paying to come and use one of the great natural resources of Florida, just because you live across the bay, is horrendous. Thank you.
Beth Lynn, 914 Harbor House Drive. I really struggle with the free parking or paid parking discussion. Up to last year, I was kind of like, I really like the free paid parking. I like the fact that we are the community we are. I've changed my mind. I'm now more pro paid parking, similar, I think, to Beth. We need to take care of our city. We need to take care of our people. But we also need to ensure that we enforce it. I'm very concerned about code enforcement, especially for parking. We already have people who park golf carts at non-parking entrances. I live across from the 9th Avenue beach access, and especially when season hits, there's always people parking their golf carts at a non-parking entrance. We also have cars driving down non-beach entrances. So I'm very concerned about the code enforcement part of this, but I do think paid parking is important. Thank you.
Hi, RB.
Good evening, everybody. RB Johnson, 1206 Beach Trail. Can you all hear me? Also, in many ways, I'd love to turn the clock back 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago, maybe my childhood, when I was a child, and actually up into the early 1990s, our accesses were not paved. They were just crushed shell and sand, with a handful of palm trees on each side, a couple of benches up by the seawall. That was it, along with the parking spaces. Very simple, very plain. They didn't take much maintenance. There weren't garbage cans out on the beach, et cetera, et cetera. The beach courts were 50 feet wide. It's not the same as it was years ago. So many things have changed. One thing has changed is the extreme population explosion of the Tampa Bay area. That is what has been driving the additional people to our beaches, and so especially Indian Rocks Beach being the last place where you can park for free. Our accesses back in the early 1990s, we started, with the help of the state of Florida, we started paving them and started to beautify them and put water towers and all kinds of accessories that necessitated a great deal more maintenance. Costs a lot more to take care of our accesses than it did 30, 40, 50 years ago. And the citizens of the city of Indian Rocks Beach are the ones who are paying for the maintenance of the accesses and the beach itself. There's much more beach maintenance going on than there was when I was a child. I sat there for many years, and I was always an advocate for free parking because I liked the fact that we were different than the other cities, that people could come from across the bridge, walk on the beach in the morning, et cetera, et cetera. But things have changed and changed and changed over the years. Even 15 or 20 years ago, we didn't see a lot of overflow parking back across Old Boulevard where the nature reserve was filled up with parking for beach parking or around Cole Park or up on the side streets. But that's not the case anymore. It's an incredible pressure that's being exerted on our city by people coming from all over the place looking for that free parking. And unfortunately, my feelings have changed because the situation has changed. And one of the things that's happened is this last year or so, I've especially noticed, is the craziness that goes on our accesses, especially on the weekends, all throughout the spring and the summer, where it's almost dangerous now to try to come off of Old Boulevard onto your access, and I live off of beach access, because people are parked in all kinds of crazy ways, waiting to get to their free parking. So the situation has changed, my feelings have changed. I am now in favor of paid parking, however it needs to be modified, where they're making it easier in the morning for the beach people to come, whether some kinds of passes, however it may be, you all can figure out the details. But I think it's just not the same situation as it was a long time ago. And I think that needs to be taken into consideration when you're making your decisions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Patty Katz, 124 13th Avenue, Indian Rocks Beach. After hearing everybody talk, I do think it is a great idea for some morning hours for people across the bridge that do enjoy just going for the walks in the morning. So I would be so for that, but I am also for some paid parking during the other times. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Alex Dorman, 126 11th Ave, permanent resident, there 100% of the time. So I enjoyed the discussion this evening. I am for paid parking. I think that maybe we've missed some details in the proposal. Dynamic pricing, using a known platform like Park Mobile. There's paid parking everywhere. I was just in Orlando and I spent $150 parking at every hotel, every restaurant. It is what people are used to. It is annoying if it's not a known platform, and usually they have the stands where you can pay with cash or it's a physical way to pay. For businesses need to validate. Guilty Seas, they're doing a great job. They do 2-hour validation when you're eating at their restaurant. So I think businesses just need to evolve what they're doing. And then another thing that I'd like to highlight is that Matt, who's running for here. Yeah, so Matt, prior to me, 2 people prior to me, he does not live on 11. He is an owner of a triplex short-term rental. And I think it's ironic that he's advocating for no parking and running for a position on the board as someone who doesn't live here and sued our city and cost us money. So I'm just going to throw that one out there. Thank you.
Anyone else have a comment on paid parking? I'm closing the public. I'm not closing it. Okay. All right, I'm closing the public comment.
Give Ryan the floor now.
And then I'm going to close the public hearing so that we can discuss.
Thank you, Mayor and Commission. So I'll do my best to fill in the gaps and kind of talk about this. So one of just first and foremost, procedurally, this is the first reading of an ordinance to establish paid metered parking in the city of Indian Rocks Beach, right? The resolution that will come after this will be to set the fee. The reason why we separated it out is because resolutions are easier to change, and a lot of cities change their paid fee throughout multiple years, right, to adjust to budget restraints and whatnot. You see cities south of us constantly changing their fee. They do that by resolution. So we establish and set the fee by resolution. This ordinance is to establish the parameters of the program of paid metered parking in the city of Indian Rocks Beach. I do want to take just a moment, though, to make a couple of comments as it relates to information that was shared from between now and the previous meeting. There was a number there was a lot of misinformation that was put out there after the December 19th meeting as it relates to Indian Rocks Beach and paid parking. Three things I just want to quickly cover. There was information that was put out there that paid parking was going to start on January 1st. Date was never established. Date was never talked about that meeting. It was actually very clear not to mention a date because there was so much that had to go before we actually get paid parking implemented in the city of Indian Rocks Beach. And I also want to assure this community, folks that visit this community, that I think anything that we do, there is going to be communication, there is going to be engagement, there's going to be a period of implementation that we can get that out. We can work with the community and let the community have the community understand where we're going, and certainly when something would start. So that January 1st, and I'm reporting that January 1st was an anathema move because that's something that we don't practice in this organization, just bringing things like that after a meeting. The second was, this wasn't talked about, but there was this concern about that $100,000 that got floated out there. I received a number of correspondence saying, is this worth doing for $100,000? No, it's not, but $100,000 is not what we're talking about when it comes to paid parking in the city of Indian Rocks Beach. As the interim finance director, Mr. Gomez, mentioned, the $100,000 would be if we asked the county to raise their fee from $250 to $450 at that lot, that would generate an additional $100,000 from what we would collect through that 60-40 split. That was just talking about the Pinellas County lot. We've run the numbers conservatively on what we would receive on paid parking at the 182 public paid parking spots in Indian Rocks Beach at those avenues, and over $1 million conservatively, right? So, we're talking about a much bigger number, and so that $100,000, there was a lot of confusion on that. The last point is the idea of this pilot program. So, for those that were at the meeting will recall, and actually those that were even at the October meeting will recall when this was brought up, and the interim city manager covered that item. There is over 300 public parking spots in Indian Rocks Beach. Okay, so when we talk about a paid metered parking program, we're not just talking about the beach access. We're talking more globally about Cole Park, Brown Park, other parks throughout our city, about what does a paid meter look like, paid parking meter program look like at those spots. What I asked the commission to consider at the December 19th meeting is to allow us to do a pilot program where we focus on about half of those, which would be the beach access points. For consistency purposes, for enforcement purposes, we drive down Gulf Boulevard, we check those spots, we're not going into the other areas. Because there is this, and I appreciate what folks are saying about enforcement. That is part of also this 6-month period of, okay, where are we with enforcement? How does enforcement look like? What does enforcement look like? How are we doing? Are we meeting the standards that we've set? So that is why we asked for consideration of just focusing on the 182 spots and not the full breadth of the public parking in Indian Rocks Beach. So I just wanted to clarify those points. I do want to just recognize the folks that are here, the media that are here, because they actually have come out over the past week and allowed the city to clarify those points and to clear up a lot of the misinformation that's out there. So for the media that are here, that have spent time with us over the past week, I appreciate you coming back out and allowing us to clarify certain aspects of the program. So the program, the ordinance before you is establishing paid metered parking in the city of Indian Rocks Beach. What we are establishing is the time parameter, 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. That's up for discussion. That was what we talked about at the December 19th meeting. There was consensus at that time. Things have changed. That's your prerogative as the commission. That was what was discussed at the last meeting. That's why we're bringing that time set, 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. As part of this. We've always talked about Indian Rocks Beach residents, neighbors, right, not paying for paid parking in this city. That conversation goes back to 2023 when my predecessor, the city manager, had those conversations with the county, had those conversations with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and talked about that and got that confirmation. So we are able to differentiate between resident and non-resident. So since 2023, and I want to make everybody aware too, and I'm sure many people understand this, that this paid parking program goes back beyond 2026, 2025, all the way back to 2023. And I've said that, obviously with the storms of 2024, put this on the back burner while we focused on recovery. And, now that it was the commission's prerogative to bring this forward. So, but that has always been a staple of the conversation with paid parking, is that residents, our neighbors, would not pay to park at those spots. So the way that this would work is that those spots that have that decal will remain those spots with that decal. As a resident, you can park there. Resident-only spots, thank you. The public parking spots would be metered, but residents with those decals would be able to park there and not have to pay. So I hope that clears up that. We also talked about at the last meeting increasing the parking violation from $75 to $100, anticipating that some people will look for unique and creative ways of parking elsewhere in the city to bypass the paid meter program. So we raised, part of this ordinance is raising it from $75 to $100 to just make that a stronger fee. That was also talked about at the last meeting. But the resolution that will come after this will talk about the fee. So you're not voting on the fee as part of this ordinance. And so, at that, I'm happy to answer, certainly more questions, but I do want to cover those specific items. I also want to mention that at the last meeting, we talked about the vendor of choice that we would utilize based off a piggyback contract. We have had conversations with Park Mobile, and as recently as yesterday, what I've asked them to come and give a presentation to the commission, to the community, as to what that would look like. They've evolved. They actually help with enforcement. They have an enforcement or platform that allows us to tap into that, to see what spots aren't paying. And so I was pretty impressed by that presentation. So we'll have them, assuming this gets approved, we'll have them at a subsequent meeting. I do want to also mention that, again, upon, if the commission votes to approve this, and then on second reading at next month's meeting, approve it, then we will then work at establishing go live date. That will be broadcast out. The community will understand when we're going out with that go live date. We will have a dedicated webpage on our website explaining the paid parking program, explaining how to pay, explaining why, explaining where the money would go. All of those things will be fully transparent with the community. So I just wanted to cover those basics and answer some of the questions that our neighbors had earlier. With that, I'll turn it over to the mayor and the commission for further discussion.
Is it a $100 violation fee if you overstay?
Yes, that would be considered, that would be a parking violation. Okay. So if you overstay your allotted time, okay, you would be subject to that $100.
Does the Park Mobile app send you a reminder? Hey,
it does, yes. And certainly, Park Mobile, that's not part of this ordinance or the resolution. I mean, I would rather have that be a separate.
You can re-up on your phone?
Yes, ma'am, and I'd rather have it, and they'll come and they'll present
okay,
kind of what that looks like, and so that'll be a separate conversation as the approval of the contract.
Are we looking at the schedule today, confirming the timing on this today, or is that going to be in the next resolution as well?
So
the fees?
From when we, so part of this ordinance does set metered parking hours from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m.
One of my concerns about that might be that we might want to differentiate in different zones timing. And I know we've kicked that around a few times, but I wouldn't want to codify this and then have us change our mind. Because I can see a value in going 8 to 8 in some places like the beach so people could walk in the morning, and then maybe have it be like, I don't know, 9 to 6 around the park or something like that. I don't know, I mean, I'm just throwing up like times out there.
That's exactly the things we need to determine tonight. This is what was discussed, so we brought it in this form from 6 to 10 every day. But it's at the pleasure of the commission. That's for you all to debate and discuss here tonight. In whatever direction you have us bring it back at the second reading, we can change that between now and the second reading.
Is this just for the pilot, or is this for the whole city rollout?
This implements it, paid beach parking in the beach accesses.
Okay, so as long as we just focus on the beach timing, we're just.
Yeah.
Right, and I will say, if we expand this, then we will need to come back and modify the ordinance to touch on those other points that we would charge for parking.
Okay.
And the ordinance essentially sets that metered parking and beach accesses, it exempts the resident spaces and resident decals parking in the paid spaces. It changes the parking violation fee from 75 to 100, and it delegates that the hourly rate will be modified by time to time by resolution of city commission, which we have a resolution on tonight to set the hourly rate. But that way, if you have flexibility, we can assess it as we go, and if you want to change it, we can change it without a 2-month process.
The hours by ordinance.
Hours we're setting by ordinance, which doesn't mean they can't be changed, but we anticipated that the fees may be reassessed at a more frequent basis than the hours, so we wanted that by resolution. And then we put in that administration of the paid parking program, so the types and methods of payment, third parties that we contract with, we feel like those could be potentially more fluid than an ordinance would allow. So we're asking that you delegate that authority for those items to the city manager as our designee. So if we're having an issue with the vendor, he can take action to fix that issue. Or, if we're not happy with Park Mobile, for example, and we want to explore another one that can be done, and it's not written in our ordinance, paid parking by Park Mobile, it's a program that's administered by the city manager.
As far as, sorry, no, it's not. As far as the fees, since we're establishing that later, is that the point at which we would be discussing things like student and senior passes and that sort of thing?
No, we probably need to discuss that. I mean, I feel, right, it would probably need to be in the ordinance. So the ordinance calls for the only exemptions of resident parking spaces would not be metered, resident-only parking spaces, and then the vehicles with a resident decal will not be paying for parking. Now, I will say this is for paid meters parking on beach accesses that the city owns. So this does not apply to the county.
Yeah, or the other ones.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a workaround, but I think that there's some room to consider students and seniors and, I don't know, things else, but.
Yeah, I think
the hours are a little tight.
If you want to adjust the hours or allow other types of exemptions, now's the time to talk about it. You can always do that in a later ordinance change, but if you're thinking about doing it, I think having that discussion now is the right time to do it.
All right. I'm for 8 to 8 personally, I think, but just for the record, and I'll yield my time, as they say. Not that I had any.
What do you think, John?
I think,
Where's hours?
9 AM to 6.
9-6.
I like the 8 in the morning. That does those people. I think most of the people that we've heard from talk about, I'd like to walk in the morning. I think that, I feel comfortable doing that. I still kind of like the 10 p.m. because as I'm hearing some things, it's that after dark that can be an issue. So I'm more in favor of 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. for our beach accesses.
I often wasn't done walking by 8, though. So when I was walking before the Great Fall.
Can't hear you. You're gonna have to get up earlier and walk.
Yeah, I guess if I want to, you got to pay to play or not, I guess.
And Hillary?
So I have a couple other questions, and I'll come back to the hours. So we talked about the pilot, and we've talked about 6 months, but we're not really documenting what that means. What are we measuring? How are we measuring it? How are we reporting it? So I don't see that covered anywhere. And I think that's important because it's something that kind of have to get back together and revisit what we've done to see if it makes sense to keep doing it or do we need to make changes.
Yeah, I mean, I can answer that real quick. I mean, I agree, and that was something that we talked about last. Okay, so what does just the measurement look like? And I think a lot of too is the enforcement not only just of the beach access points, right? But also like what does the enforcement look like in the neighborhoods and making sure that we are going out there into the neighborhoods and enforcing the no parking areas in the neighborhoods. One thing that I was impressed about, and I don't want to just because this commission has not approved of the contract, right? But one thing that I was impressed by the vendor that we met with is that there is an opportunity to track and to measure, how often people stay in spots, right? What hours they stay in those spots, right? What hours are they vacant? When those spots are occupied, even, and through a dashboard. And so what I would ask is that we come back as kind of part of that conversation and have that, and they can show kind of what a dashboard looks like so that we can kind of talk about what data we're looking at and how we would kind of measure, certain, because you may look at the hours and you may say, well, the hours may not make sense if nobody's parking there anyway at those hours, right? And we would be able to kind of then, okay, well then we modify the hours, right, as an example. We modify the rates. I mean, that's something too that we would maybe look at too, just to see use. So I think really, and then we would talk about, okay, what is enforcement, do we do paid parking at Cole Park, right? What does that look like respective of the use of the ball field, pickleball courts, tennis courts, things like that? So I do understand that, Commissioner King, and I appreciate that, because I do think that there will be more of a conversation on that, and the expectation, I think, that would be from you to me is that I report on that, and I can articulate kind of what we're looking at.
So yeah, I'd like to see us include how are we measuring the offload impact into the streets. I know this is pilot and we agree that it makes sense to do it in a limited controlled area, but I think we're going to see the unintended consequence of quite a bit of neighborhood parking and I don't know about everybody else, but my street is covered with construction workers and it's already nearly impassable many days, so it's a safety issue for emergency responders. And I think we're going to see more of that. I think a couple people did bring that up in the comments. I don't know if they're still here, but I think we've got to figure out a way to measure that because we may decide we have to implement paid street parking sooner rather than wait 6 months and then decide. So I'd like us to be able to measure that somehow. I don't know how, but I'm just tasking you with that.
So the ordinance doesn't, have the word pilot program in it, but kind of the pilot program is the combination of many different pieces. That being that we're implementing the paid parking, that the beach access is only through this ordinance, that we're setting hourly rates, and we're going to ultimately have a schedule of hourly rates in the resolution, and then the direction to staff is to assess this and report back in that 6-month period, analyze how it's working and what do we need to change and do we expand it or do away with it, or like the term pilot, is that all combined? So yeah, you're not going to see that in this particular part of the ordinance, but I think it's a accumulation of everything. It's kind of the direction is we're doing this on a limited basis, and we're going to see how it goes and report back and analyze how it's working and what can be improved and do we need to expand to street parking to prevent.
I think that's fine. I just want to see it documented how we're doing and how we're going to measure ourselves. Because otherwise, just saying that we're going to see how it goes, and I don't mean to be rude, but I mean that doesn't mean anything if we're not measuring things that we believe are going to be impacted one way or the other. So I'm asking for something more definitive before our next meeting.
In the ordinance, you're wanting parameters?
No, but I think we need to have a plan for how we're going to measure our success or failure at our pilot.
I mean, we're gonna have our local deputies monitoring parking. They're also gonna be enforcement of.
Yes, yes, yeah, so
And
the,
then- and we can also ask them to monitor, how much parking is increasing in the
Yeah, so-
residential streets.
right, so whatever platform we end up going with, the sheriff's office would have access to that. So they would
Okay.
be able to utilize that to respond accordingly to monitor.
Okay. But yeah, I do probably think, this year is not a good measurement of how many visitors we had, because, still kind of post-hurricane, and we didn't have a huge flood of visitors over this last year, but that could change this year.
Yeah, we'll get the city manager this week, we'll talk about some kind of written plan, not to put the ordinance, but that's a guide. And we'll get that back to all of you to review.
Thanks.
Do you have
I would
comment
comment about the
hours?
hours. If we shorten the hours like we're talking about, we would really literally be the only barrier island town that does that. Most of them are either 6 or 7 a.m. until 11 p.m. or midnight. So I understand the beach walking. I think we're going to find ourselves in a place of we make a decision and we're going to have to stick with it one way or the other because there's going to be so many different interests that are going to want something different. I just don't know how we're going to manage that. I can see making our morning hours a little bit later, but I do not want to change the evening hour that we have proposed. There's just a lot of silliness that goes on after dark and around sunset at the beach access.
And then we're saying after 10 p.m., there's no parking there.
There's, right, I think that we had the overnight ordinance that would kick in, so at that point.
Does that kick in at 10 or 11? Because, there's an opportunity for an hour of free parking in between 10 and 11.
We better check it. We better check it. We better check it.
I can see doing 8 to 10. Yes, or even 9 to 10. Just have coffee in the morning and
Well, I think you suggested, Mr. Bigelow, that you wanted to do 9 a.m. to 10 p.m.
Is it 9 to 6?
9 to 6.
I don't have any problem with 10.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So could we be in agreement that we're 8 a.m. to 10 p.m.? Did we get a consensus on that?
Yes, I like that.
Works for me.
So what I would ask is, if you're inclined to pass this on the first reading, whoever wants to move to do that would move to pass it with the modified hours of 8 to 10 p.m.
Are we ready for that?
To make a
Yeah,
motion?
okay, Mayor,
We'll
I'll
have another
step
swipe
back
at
there,
this
so
too,
just-
so.
Yeah.
if whenever the time comes when you are ready, if we're done with discussion, if someone is inclined to make a motion to approve it, I would ask that it is stipulated that modified hours.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to move to adopt resolution number,
Ordinance.
ordinance number, I'm ahead of myself here.
2601.
2026-01.
Oh, two.
Excuse me quickly.
Is it still 01?
Does this preclude passes then if we do this?
Now, if you want, it doesn't, we can make changes between now and the second reading. But if you want to make changes to it, now's the time to discuss it.
Well, I'd like to
and
discuss it with you guys then before we
Okay,
go
okay.
crazy with this.
All right.
How do you guys feel about some carve-outs?
No. I think we've made that carve out to 8 a.m.
John? What about, well, students aren't going to go. Sorry, I'm sorry.
I'm good with 8 a.m.
The carve-outs for, say, students, seniors, those are the first two on top of my head. Oh, seniors, students, military, let's say, something like that. I'm not saying 3, I'm saying just